What's up, everyone? How is everyone doing? And today we'll be talking about the new 5.4 Abyss reset. They reset it a few days ago. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get a video out until today. That being said, today we're talking about the current reset. A lot easier than the last few that we've had. That being said, for those of you who want to squeeze out the extra star or want to maximize your damage in this Abyss, hopefully this video helps you out. Yeah, let's begin. Okay, so before we begin with everything, let's just talk about some of the buffs that are happening. First thing is the Abyssal Moon Blessing. Quite simply, is that every 3 seconds when you have healing, a shockwave will be unleashed that does true damage. This is basically about 14 to 16k flat damage. So yeah, we finally have Remembrance MC in Remembrance MC for Honkai Star Rail in Genshin. Jokes aside, that being said, yeah, it's pretty good because obviously we know that in this 5.4 first half we have Siegewin and Mizuki, who are healers, and even the second half characters Risley and Furina, due to the kit mechanics, the health drains and what's so on. Healing is also very important for those teams, so definitely very beneficial for all the new characters. And so the other thing to take note is that obviously many characters take advantage of this. You can also take advantage of this from weapons like your prototype Amber that will also trigger the passive. Obviously, if you look at this, the one of the characters that would not make use of this is actually Arlecchino, because of the way her health is being locked through the Bond of Life. That being said, she just still wipe most content because of how powerful she is, so it's not that big of an impact because Genshin impact. Okay, anyways, first half disorder, we have the swirl damage increased for the active character by 600%. I believe they lose this once they switch out. That being said, it's still pretty decent amount of damage, but this will definitely benefit more on-field characters like Sucrose, like Mizuki, even to a certain extent Lanyan. Tasca could probably use this as well. And then for the second half, mostly benefits characters like Risley, but also Ganyu works very well because of the cryo charge attacks being increased by 75%. Now, let's just look at the enemies briefly. So chamber 1 first half is 3 waves of these Aramite elites. One of the major things is that they will try to freeze you because one is cryo, one is hydro, so they'll try to freeze you, and once they hit a certain HP threshold, they will start to like infuse their weapons, so they do a little bit more damage. Still pretty decent, so just managing the 3 waves. And then for the second half, we have 5 waves of one of either the Rune Guard or the Rune Grader that will spawn in one by one. So it's kind of like basically it's kind of like managing the different ways, because they don't spawn together, they all spawn one by one, they spawn in a circular motion. So definitely you do have to like manage your abilities and stuff like that. Second chamber, 22 enemies. We have a lot of the Heliotros and stuff like that will pop out. Yeah, it's just a lot of waves that come in, a lot of enemies. The Hydro Heliotro obviously have Hydro resistance, so that's something to take note. That being said, if you sound like Neuvillette, you should be fine. The Experimental Field Generator is the second half, is the one that can alter the gravity of your playing field, but this also allows you to jump high and plunge to dodge his attacks. And the third one, we have the Ruined Drake Earth Guard. They come in 2 waves of 2, so altogether total of 4, and they at a certain point will start to infuse elements of your attacks, so that's something to take note. And the Solitary Swanee, this enemy kind of necessitates you to bring a cryo character. You don't have to be a cryo main DPS, but even a support or sub DPS like Silali, characters like Rosaria can also do very well, right? Even if they're not the main DPS, because you have to interact with their mechanic to freeze them. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to run some B-roll, and I'm going to use, and for this setup, I'll be using this team. It's an electrocharge team that I've used quite often when I want to use Ayato. I do like this team quite a bit. It is a little bit skewed because I do have a C1 Furina, but you know, it's still Ayato who's a C0 at R1. For the second half, I decided to bring back my Raiden Shogun with the standard Xiangling and Bandicom, but because of the Swanee, I had to bring the Sitlali there as well. But so yeah, that's about it. We run some B-roll. I'm going to talk as it plays in the background. 12-1 first half. This is the way. This is the side with the 3 Aramite elites that comes in waves of 3. So basically, if you're, depending on the team comp you're using, you will really want to position yourself very, very well. In this team comp, I use Ayato with Fischl, and I tend to position myself, especially with Fischl. Her burst does help with repositioning to kind of place myself to hit all enemies, because if you're hitting one and there are 2 behind you, you kind of like, waste your damage kind of thing. So yeah, by the way, I do apologize if the footage is a little bit blurry. Apparently, I'm not getting my videos out in like the good quality, but yeah, I'm just bursting through with Ayato, going down the line, being able to deal as much damage as I can and to as many enemies as I can. This is really nice if you're using like the Taser team with Sucrose, Beidou, Xingqiu, and Fischl, right? As mentioned, positioning is very, very important, and the swirl damage that you get, especially from Sucrose, is going to be very, very nice. In this instance, I'm using Jean. Jean doesn't really work as well with the mechanic besides the burst on initial hit, because the subsequent swirls don't really impact that much. But that being said, it was still a pretty decent run. Okay, so I had to re-record the first half. This second half is basically the one with 5 rune graders. You kind of have to just cycle your abilities. This is why I use Raiden Shogun, because not only is she able to get her burst up very, very well, she's also able to get the burst out for my other characters, especially for Xiangling. So we're just going through all the different waves, so yeah, basically in this second half, we are just trying to maximize our damage while also being consistent in upkeeping our abilities. And I think that if you are having trouble with that, you may want to consider giving your characters a little bit more ER so that they're able to use their abilities off cooldown, especially for characters that are very dependent on their burst. Obviously, if you're using characters like Navia or like characters that are not dependent on their burst, it's going to be fine, obviously. But that being said, if you are dependent on your abilities, especially your elemental burst, then having enough ER to clear is going to be enough. It's going to help you quite tremendously. That's what I meant. Also, one thing I always talk about Spiral Abyss is that you don't have to do consecutive runs. What I mean by this is that, let's say, for example, you only got 2 stars in Chamber 1, but you have 3 stars in Chamber 2 and 3. You can obviously bring a different team to try to clear the first chamber that maybe was not as good in clearing Chamber 2 and 3. So don't be too worried always to always clear in one go. You need to reset and come back with a different team that maybe you weren't able to use because you had it on a different side. It's always still pretty fine. So yeah, we're just bursting down the enemies here. We have decent damage, and then we have our cooldowns back for most of our characters. Okay, now this is the Chamber 2 first half. I think that Chamber 2 out of the 3 chambers is probably the one that will give people the most difficulty, because the first wave does have quite a lot of enemies. Like, do not underestimate the 22 enemies that you're facing, especially if you're using like a Hydro main DPS, because the Hydro Rogue Helicros do have increased Hydro resistance. So, but that being said, as I mentioned, if you have a character like Neuvillette, you should be fine. In this footage, because I didn't have enough energy, I am actually trying to get my energy back, and that's why this first half tends to have taken a little bit longer than I wanted. That being said, we're still going to be using the same tactic that we employed in the first half. In Chamber 1, where we're trying to position ourselves properly. One of the things that you may want to consider is that generally the hardest enemies, especially if you're using a Hydro main DPS, would be the Rogue Helicros, and the other enemies, especially the normal Helicros, would tend to go towards where you are standing, whereas the Rogue Helicros tend to be more stationary. So that's where you will want to bait the enemies into coming to your side by by just focusing on the Hydro Helicros. So yeah, you're just using our abilities. We have Farina to give decent buffs to our team, and of course, this team works very well because we recently had a buff to the electro charge reaction. Once again, I apologize if the footage is a little bit blurry. I definitely need to change my settings in my recording software to get better footage. But yeah, and actually I uploaded this video they're watching raw, and unfortunately even at 1080p HD it was so blurry that I had to take the video down and re-record this segment by myself. But that being said, I think it's still pretty fine. As I mentioned, I'll try to I definitely have to test this because previously I've not done a lot of gameplay footage, and I think if I want to go and do gameplay footage moving forward, we definitely need to change those settings. So yeah, that was pretty good. That was still pretty decent, even though we had to like spend the first 15 to 20 seconds trying to get our energies back, and then we could properly rotate through our team. And then for the second half, we obviously had a generator. We're just going to go forward. As I probably mentioned this a few times, so this team isn't really that fine because Celali and Rider Shogun don't really have the best interactions. Where this is more for Xiangling's damage in actuality. That being said, I kind of mentioned this. You really do want a cryo character in the second half because of the third and last chamber. But yeah, we're still doing pretty decent damage, and obviously the shield still helps Raiden Shogun because she helps protect her. That being said, obviously Superconduct does nothing for Raiden, and so there's no reactions based on that. You basically only have reactions through Xiangling and Citlali, and to a certain extent Bennett, because the Bennett field is able to help Citlali melt on her burst. But yeah, even with that restriction in mind, we are still doing pretty good. Raiden Shogun, this is a C0 Raiden Shogun. I do have decent artifacts on her, as I'll show towards the end, but we definitely still got the job done. We did have do it in like with 6 seconds to spare, but take in mind that I'll keep in mind that the first half we had to spend 15 to 20 seconds trying to get our abilities back. So I think that overall it's still pretty good. And obviously, if you have plunging characters, they're going to help very much in the second half, especially with characters like Shao. The one thing about the generator is that the generator does have increased geo resistance, but if you're using a character like Navi, I think you should still do enough damage. As I've done many times in the past. Okay, so this is the chamber 3 first half. This is where I employed this tactic, and it's something that you can use quite a lot, especially against the Abyssal Heralds, is that when you see waves of enemy or a wave where they spawn 2 enemies and they are side by side, it's good to position yourself to the side so that they one stands in front of the other, so that the enemy at the back will start to move towards you, and in turn starts to move just behind your enemy. Whereas if you do it from the side, they tend to be a little bit far apart, and because especially for enemies that have range, they tend to be grouped quite far away. Whereas if you make them move, right, you tend to get them closer. So we're trying to like trick the AI basically. So yeah. Okay, so let me just move forward in this video to where we actually start the gameplay. Okay, so yeah, that's basically that. And of course, the Ruin Drakes, they do, if you do not take them out in time, or you do not have them hit each other, they will tend to absorb the element and make it harder for your main DPS. So in this case, Ayato's just unleashing his abilities, getting hit quite a bit. Farina's also going in, and then we have we have Jean and Fisher to unleash their abilities as well. And you can see I'm trying to position myself quite nicely behind them, but being able to hit both of them. Generally in AoE situations, positioning in Genshin Impact is very, very important, especially with characters who are a little bit more stationary, like I mentioned Sucrose in the beginning. So yeah, we are doing very well. We got down with the first wave, and now we're down to the second wave, and we're just rinsing and repeating. So yeah, unfortunately, I should have probably positioned myself very better over there. But that being said, when it comes to Chamber 3, it's also a lot about unleashing your abilities all in one go. And because you don't need to save your abilities anymore, so we're just like trying to go ham and try and get a better timing. So yeah, Ayato's just going to go in, going to do lots of damage. And yeah, like see right over here, I'm just letting it all go. Okay, and we are done with the first half. All right, and lastly, the solitary Swanee is an enemy that has a cryo mechanic that you have to interact with. So basically, there's a moment where he infuses himself with hydro, and that is where you want your cryo characters to freeze him. And then by using another elemental reaction, like for example, I use the Bennett's key to just melt, it will break the Swanee and will stun them, and also you can do additional damage at that moment in time. Do take note that if you are using Bennett for this half, the Swanee does a lot of like AoE hydro damage, and if you're standing in Bennett's E, the Swanee will tend to vaporize you. So this is the part where I melt, right? And then now I can do a little bit more damage. But going back to what I said, if you're in Bennett's E and the Swanee does the AoE hydro damage, it tends to be quite devastating. It is very similar to the Coppelius and Coppelia boss, where because they do both animal damage and cryo damage, they will either swirl or melt you as well, which will do additional damage. Because you know what? The laws of Tevet work that way. But yeah, we are just getting our abilities back so that we can rotate fully. Yeah, Xiangling is going to go in. And the second phase of this, which I probably maybe skipped already, is that there is a moment where the Swanee will summon 3 animal balls. Yes, we have animal balls in this game. But basically what happens is that you will have to interact with those animal balls with one of the 4 elements that are swirlable: pyro, hydro, electro, and cryo. And then you also momentarily stun them as well. So basically this entire fight is about interacting with those 2 mechanics. They tend to rotate, so just always be ready to unleash an ability that will interact with them. Xiangling is pretty good because obviously her pyro nado does do AoE, so that it will go, it'll hit a bigger radius basically. Yeah, but any character that does well in hitting those multiple targets, even like your charge bow characters like your Ganyu, will tend to do very well because you're able to snipe down the balls. Yeah, so we're just gonna go through, Rider Shoguns doing decent damage even without the banner buff. And yeah, we're just rinsing and repeating. We are quite comfortable with 30 seconds with like 10% HP left. So yeah, very, very comfortable getting abilities back. Yeah, as mentioned, just be careful of if you're using Bennett, because Swanee does quite a lot of hydro damage, which means that if you're not careful, you may be bursted down by the vaporized reaction. But yeah, here we're just going through the home stretch and just taking it out with 1 solitary Trident ultimate strike. So yeah, I think that's that. Going forward, as mentioned, I'll probably record the video in better quality. I apologize if the quality looks like shit, because it does look like shit. But I will just go through some of my builds before we move forward. As mentioned, I do have a C1 Farina, so people may say that may have skewed some of the results. In my opinion, I still think it's pretty fine, because I think that it's just like a 25% bonus damage, which is quite a lot, but that is that. Okay, so let's go to my Ayato build. I really wanted to focus on Inazuma characters for this run, because obviously 5.4 we are back to the region. So I decided to use characters that people told me were dog shit in a previous video. That being said, Ayato is still pretty decent as a driver. Maybe not the best personal damage, but I still think he is still pretty awesome nonetheless. And as I mentioned, right, Genshin Impact is not that difficult a game. We do not have crazy power creep that will rail you to the stars, thankfully. So yeah, this is my Ayato build, 77 EM. This is the crit, and the ER. The ER, I do want a little bit more ER, but because I was running double hydro, it was still pretty fine. Running the Heart of Depth set, I have decent artifacts, because I used to run this on both Child and Ayato, but now that I've put Child on the Nim's Dream pieces, I can like consolidate my pieces within one character. That being said, I do think that even in today, you should probably just use the Gladiators finale if you don't have the Echo set. I think it's slightly better. Yeah, I think that is a slightly better set than all these. That being said, it's still pretty fine. Where is my Farina? Yep, Farina still pretty goated. I do have a C. Okay, so Ayato is at C0 right over here. And then we have C1 on Farina. It basically allows you to generate your fanfare stacks faster. But not faster, you're able to generate your max fanfare stack faster, and you start off with 100 fanfare stacks. That being said, I still run the Flu Sondra. These are my stats. Still pretty decent considering I'm not running a crit weapon, and I'm obviously running her on her best in slot set. I do have pretty good artifacts on her because I farmed the ever living shit for Farina, so I deserve the good artifacts. And then for Fischl, Fischl also running the Golden Troop. These are her stats. Has decent EM because of the Stringless, which helps out the Taser comms very, very nicely. And then for the artifacts, we do have decent ones as well. But my best ones usually all go towards the Farina, but still not the worst. And I forgot to mention this. These are the talent levels, so 112.9, 110.10 for Farina because she deserves the best, and then 188 for Ayato. And of course, Fischl is at C6, so that is that. Yeah, still pretty decent. And last but not least, we have Jean. As mentioned, Jean probably not the best character. Jean is mostly there for her healing because she works very well with Farina. So I just have a lot of attack, a lot of energy recharge, and some crit because she's holding Favonius. But yeah, just pretty decent stats all around. It's not really that crazy. Okay, this is actually pretty decent considering that it rolled nicely. But yeah, I have 1612 because I did just pull C3. So I do have C3 on her. I will admit though, the C2 actually helped Ayato quite a bit because it helped increase his attack speed. So yeah, it's gonna be very nice for a character like Ayato. And then let's look at the second half. We have Raiden Shogun also at C0. With this crit ratio, I do have her on the deathmatch at R5, which is probably quite unrelatable to some, but you know what? People do have Engulfing Lightning and I don't. So that is that. So quite okay. Her attack goblet is kind of bad. I just never got the chance to redo it. So that's that. And then we have, yeah, it's pretty okay pieces all around. And then Bennett's build is quite easy, right? You just go pretty high HP for the healing. Okay, let me find Bennett. Sorry. Let me just filter this out. Okay, so yeah, Bennett, you know, I do have Favonius on him just to help with the energy, you know, just a lot of ER to get his burst back. I do have it at C5. I already mentioned why many times. I have never C6 Bennett. Is mainly because I just wanted to play with Lynette more because Lynette unfortunately gets the Pyro Infusion over her animal. That being said, right, decent enough talents, decent enough energy recharge. Xiangling, we do have decent amount of stats as well, and we have her on the catch. Talents will be 1612, and then obviously for artifacts we have the emblem. I mentioned Bennett, I have the Noblesse set, which is very, very nice on him. I do have pretty decent subsets except for I just have very, very bad goblets, so that's that. Right, my goblets are all pretty bad, so, and you know, with pretty bad goblets being able to still clear, I think that is pretty decent. And last but not least, we do have Sitlali, which I would say not really that beneficial to this team, more so that she's able to interact with the mechanic of the Swani. That being said, I do have on 4-piece gilded because I've never found a proper Cinder City set for her. And also because if I'm using this team, I generally want Cinder City on her as well, so that's that. But yeah, 188, and she's on her signature, which does give the team a lot more energy. So yeah, I think that's that for this video. Hopefully you guys liked this. I am going to get better B-roll, I promise, because I know that the B-roll in this video kind of bad, especially in terms of like visual quality. But I hope that you guys still like this video. Don't forget to check me out, like, subscribe, share, comment, all that good stuff. Let me know your experience in this abyss and what teams you used. And yeah, do come check me out live, right, where I did the initial run of this team for everyone on twitch.tv. Link is down in the description below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Until then, stay healthy, stay safe, be good to yourselves and the people around you, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.